What's happening, seventh graders? Welcome back. We are at chapter 1.3, example 1. Now we are subtracting with negative numbers. So there's different ways to do this. So let's take a look at a couple of the ways that they show it. They like to add the opposite. So make sure you have your notes out. You can use a number line to check your answers. But let's take a look at here. We have 3 minus 12. So maybe some of us have heard that you can't subtract the bigger number from the smaller number, but you actually can. You just have a negative answer, right? Sort of like borrowing more money than you have. So let's take a look. So 3 minus 12 is equal to 3 plus negative 12. So you add the opposite of 12. So plus negative 12 is the same as minus 12. So when you add negative 12, you end up with negative 9. So the difference is negative 9. So if you go on a number line, you start at 3 and you go back 12 spaces, you're going to end up at negative 9. And what about this one? This says find negative 8 minus negative 13. So this is where adding the opposite comes in handy when you subtract, because something happens here when we have a double negative, and it's pretty tricky. So if you add the opposite of negative 13, you end up adding 13. So anytime you see two negatives right here, minus, negative, that actually means plus. And why that works is, let's say you owe me $13. Well, if I remove that $13 that you owe me, that just basically adds 13 for you. So minus negative 13 is the same as plus 13. So whenever we're subtracting, you can think of it as adding the opposite, and add the opposite means plus positive 13. So we have negative 8 plus 13, and we end up with 5. Here we have 5 minus negative 4. So again, we're going to add the opposite. This becomes plus 4. And the answer ends up being 9. So think of this as owing money and somebody canceling your debt. And that's probably the trickiest thing here, is remembering when you have two negatives here, we're going to add the opposite, and you end up with positive 9. All right, let's take a look at some more here. So we have 8 minus 10, negative 3
Subtract 8
minus
minus
negative
10.
6, and 2 minus negative
Notice
4.
that 10 is greater than 8. So this is not a normal subtraction problem. So in order to subtract two integers, we will write it as adding the opposite instead of subtracting. So we have 8 plus the opposite of 10 is negative 10. So now we have an addition problem with two integers of different signs. So remember, what we need to do is take the absolute value of each integer. So we have the absolute value of 8 is equal to 8, and the absolute value of negative 10 is equal to 10. What we need to do is subtract the lesser absolute value from the greater absolute value. 8 is less than 10, so we'll subtract 8 from 10. This gives us 2. So our answer has 2 in it, and then we need to figure out the sign. So we take the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. Like we said, 10 is greater than 8, and in our problem, 10 has the negative sign. So our answer will be negative as well. So the answer is negative 2. 8 minus 10 is equal to negative 2. Let's try another example. Negative 3 minus a negative 6. So we are subtracting two negative numbers. Again, we can rewrite this as adding the opposite. So we have negative 3, then we add, the opposite of negative 6 is positive 6. So we have negative 3 plus 6. Now we're adding two integers with different signs. So again, we take the absolute value of both numbers. absolute value of negative 3 is equal to 3, and the absolute value of 6 is equal to 6. So we subtract the lesser from the greater absolute value. 3 is less than 6, so we have 6 minus 3, and that is equal to 3. So in our answer we have a 3. Now we need to figure out what sign it is. We take the sign from the greater absolute value. 6 is greater than 3, and in our problem 6 is positive. So our answer is positive 3. Negative 3 minus a negative 6 is equal to 3. Finally, let's try one more example. 2 minus a negative 4. So remember, when we're subtracting a negative number, we can write it as adding the opposite. So we have 2, then we add the opposite of negative 4, which is positive 4. Now we have addition of two positive integers, which we can do 2 plus 4 is equal to 6. So 2 minus a negative 4 is equal to 6.
All right, there you have it. So we're adding the opposite. Let's take a look at a few examples here. So subtract 8 minus 3. Well, these are both positive, so that's just 5. 9 minus 17. So you can take the absolute values and you end up with 17 minus 9, which is 8. But we have a negative, so we're add the opposite here. So negative 8 would be our answer. Negative 3 minus 3. Again, that's going to be, if you use a number, you can use a number line as well. You go to the left when you subtract, or you can add the opposite. Different ways to do it, but this is going to be negative 6. Negative 14 minus 9. I'm going to go left on the number line again. So you end up at negative 25. 9 minus negative 8, that's going to end up being plus 8. Add the opposite, so you end up with 17. And then negative 12 minus negative 12 would actually be plus 12, so you end up at 0 on that one. All right, so if you're not sure how we got some of those, sorry, this was negative 23. I said 25, but that was a mistake. Sorry. So if you're not sure how we got some of these, come see me at the Google Meet and we can work on it together.